lawyer who threw a paralegal under a bus. I watched a senior defense attorney ruin her reputation in less than 30 seconds. Not because she lost a case, not because she made some catastrophic legal error, but because she refused to own a mistake that didn't even matter. We were in a military courtroom at the United States Air Force Academy. A cadet is facing a general court-martial for sexual assault. The stakes, career-ending, life-altering. His freedom is on the line. And the senior defense counsel, someone I genuinely respected, someone with reputation as a kick-ass trial lawyer, just threw her paralegal under the bus in open court over the page count on a motion. Reputation and respect takes years to build and seconds to lose. And what I learned in that moment fundamentally changed how I defend senior NCOs and military officers facing allegations that can strip away everything they built over 20, 25, or 30 years of service. Because here's what most people don't understand about high-stakes military defense. Credibility is the only currency that matters. And the second you stop taking ownership, even of the small stuff, you've already lost. This applies to the lawyer and the client. And it's not even about core values. This is about strategy. And if you're a senior officer or a senior NCO facing court-martial, protecting your credibility from the start will determine whether you get to keep your career, your retirement, and your freedom, or lose everything. I'm Joshua Tolan. I've spent my career in military courtrooms, and now I defend senior enlisted members and officers in the military justice system. People who have dedicated their lives to serving their country. People who are now facing allegations, sexual assault, domestic violence, even sometimes minor violations that could end their careers and destroy their families. And I've seen a pattern. The service members who survive these cases, they're not the ones with perfect records. They're not the ones who never made a mistake. They're the ones who understand that credibility is built in the moments when you admit what you actually did. So you're believed when you say what you didn't do. The service members who lose everything, they're the ones who deny everything, who blame everyone else, who refuse to take ownership of anything. And by the time they realize that strategy has backfired, it's too late. Let me take you into my first military courtroom, because what happened that day taught me more about military defense strategy than any law school class or JAG school could ever teach. The moment that cost a senior defense attorney her respect. Let me tell you about the day that I lost respect for a defense attorney I used to admire. A senior military defense attorney just threw her paralegal under a bus in open court, and the judge's face said everything. For those of you not in the military justice world, this is the first phase of trial where lawyers argue about what evidence gets to come in at trial, what rules are going to apply, basically what the battlefield is going to look like when the actual trial starts. In this case, the defense had filed lots of motions. This particular motion was a motion with dozens of attachments. It was thick, complex. The arguments were high stakes. It was a motion to dismiss the case in its entirety. The senior defense counsel stands up to announce the motion on the record. In some branches, the court reporter marks documents. In the civilian world, we have courtroom clerks that handle docketing. But in the Air Force, the lawyers have to say everything out loud to get it into the record. Exhibit number, page count, the date, and the title of the motion. It is the most boring part of a court martial. So she gets up and says, "Your Honor, this motion is X pages long." I have the puzzled look on my face, stand up and say, "Your Honor, the motion we received is shorter than that." The judge is nodding her head while I talk, and because she noticed the same thing. So she says, "Yes, defense counsel, hey, we have a shorter version. What is the actual version?" And we just put a pin in it for the time because nobody knows what's going on. Now, here's the thing. This is not a big deal. Wrong page count, it happens. It doesn't really matter. Nobody's going to say she's the worst trial lawyer ever because she had the page count wrong. We put a pin in the issue and we moved on. We dealt with other issues. We handled the other things that had to be done. And then we came back on the record later that day. Here's where it happened. The defense attorney corrects the page count. Fine, standard, we're good, we're ready to move on. But then without anyone asking her, without any reason whatsoever, she says, The mistake was caused by the defense paralegal. She was trying to be helpful. I was watching in awe. My face was sad. I just can't believe what she's doing. Here's the deal. This paralegal is busting her ass for this case. She's working nights and weekends to make sure everything she can do to help is helping. She's checking exhibits. She's making sure that motions are copied. She's the reason the defense team is even functional. And she just got publicly blamed for a mistake that didn't even matter by the attorney that's supposed to be leading her. And here's what I saw in that moment. A leader who did not value her team. A lawyer who saw her paralegal as expendable. A professional who refused to take ownership of her own case. I don't know if it mattered to the judge in that exact moment, but I know it mattered to me. Because in the military justice system, so many legal calls are close. So many decisions come down to credibility, to reputation, to whether the judge trusts you when you're arguing something that's in a gray area. And this senior defense counsel just told everyone in the room, hey, when things go wrong, don't trust me. I'm not accountable. I'm going to pass the buck to somebody else. That's it. That's the signal. And my respect for her was gone. Now, years later, she and I are friends, but rebuilding that took time. And she had to dig herself out of a hole that there was no good reason to start with in the first place. Here's why it matters if you're facing a court martial. Your defense attorney's credibility becomes your credibility. If your lawyer won't own a small mistake in front of a judge, how is that judge supposed to believe your lawyer when there's a close legal call? And if you're the one facing allegations, the exact same principle applies to you. The moment you start blaming everyone else, your subordinates, your spouse, your command, the alleged victim, the investigators, the moment you do that, you lose. Because court-martial panels don't acquit people who refuse to take responsibility for anything. Why your paralegal is your most valuable asset in high-stakes defense. Here's what most senior officers don't understand about winning a court-martial. It's not about you, it's about the team you surround yourself with. If you think your paralegal is just there to run the copy machine or make copy, you've already lost your case. Let me tell you something about paralegals in the military justice system. If you are lucky enough to have one who knows what they're doing, they are a force multiplier. They are the difference between a defense that's reactive and scrambling and a defense that's 3 steps ahead of the prosecution. In military courts martial, cases are won and lost in the details. Discovery timelines, exhibit preparation, witness coordination, records request, motions with airtight attachments. When everything is clicking, your paralegal is managing all that while your attorney is strategizing. Your paralegal is an extension of your lawyer's brain and reputation. And when your lawyer throws them under the bus, they don't just lose the paralegal's respect, they've lost the team effort. Here's what I saw in that courtroom. A leader who didn't value her team. And in that moment, I made a decision. I will never be that kind of lawyer. Because if I'm defending a senior officer accused of sexual assault or domestic violence, someone who spent 20 years leading airmen, sailors, Marines, or soldiers, I need to be able to show them who that officer really is. A team player who takes responsibility. But if I, as their attorney, won't model that same ownership and leadership, if I'm blaming my staff in open court over something that doesn't matter, then I'm teaching my client to do the exact same thing. And that's how you lose cases. Here's what this means for you. If you're facing a court-martial, pay attention to how your defense attorney treats their team. Because how they treat their paralegal in a low-stakes moment is a window into how they'll treat you when the pressure is really on. And if they won't take ownership of a small mistake, they absolutely won't take ownership of a strategic miscalculation that costs you your career. The charging strategy prosecutors use to box you in. Here's the game prosecutors play that most senior officers don't see coming until it's too late. They'll charge you with rape and adultery in the same case. It's a trap, and here's how it works. In courts-martial, especially sexual assault cases, prosecutors do something that seems contradictory. They charge you with a serious offense, like sexual assault, and a minor offense, like extramarital sexual conduct. It used to be called adultery. Here's how it plays out. You had sex with this person by force and without their consent. You raped her. Oh, and also, at the same time, you had sex with this person who wasn't your spouse and did so consensually. Wait, what? Yeah, if it was consensual, it wasn't assault. And if it was assault, it wasn't consensual. It doesn't make logical sense. But military prosecutors do this all the time. Why? Because they're setting this trap. They want you to fight both charges with equal intensity. They want you to deny everything. They want you to come across as someone who refuses to admit any wrongdoing of any kind, even the stuff you obviously did. And here's what happens to senior officers who take that approach. The jury stops believing them. Because the jury knows you committed adultery, the evidence is overwhelming. Your spouse knows, your command knows, you know. So when you go to the stand and deny that you even did that, or when your lawyer argues it didn't happen at all, you lose that credibility. And once the jury stops believing you or your lawyer on the small stuff, they stop believing you on the big stuff. Here's the move that changes everything. Own what you actually did. Stand up in that courtroom and say, yes, I had an affair. I violated the trust of my spouse, my family, and my command. I'm not proud of it. I take full responsibility for that. And then once you've established that you're willing to admit fault where fault exists, you say, but let me tell you what I didn't do. I did not rape anyone. I did not commit sexual assault. What happened between us was consensual. And here's the evidence to prove it. This is the ownership gap. Now, I want to be clear. This is not legal advice. I'm not telling you exactly what to do in your case. But this is a very important issue for you to understand and for your attorneys to understand. So when you're considering how to handle a strategic military defense, you're doing it the right way. This ownership gap is the difference between officers who preserve their careers and officers who lose everything. Because when you own the thing you actually did, the panel believes you when you deny the thing you didn't do. Now, it's not always adultery. Sometimes it's a regulation violation. Maybe you drank alcohol within 8 hours of a flight. Maybe you had an unprofessional relationship. You were too close to a subordinate, but you didn't actually have sex with them. Maybe you violated a technical order. Maybe you failed to report something you should have reported. Whatever it is, sometimes the right strategy is to own it strategically. Because the alternative is you fight everything, you deny everything, and you get convicted on everything. Here's what this means for you. If you're facing multiple charges and one of them is something that you know you did, your instinct is going to be to fight it anyway. You're going to think, look, if I admit to anything, I'm done. But that's just not how juries work, and that's not how military member panels work. Military panels are made up of senior officers and NCOs who've spent their careers holding people accountable, and they're looking for honesty. They're looking for someone who's willing to say, I screwed up here, but I didn't do this other super criminal thing. If you refuse to admit fault on anything, they'll assume you're lying about everything. But there's nuance here too, and this is why real strategic military lawyers are so important. I watched a defense attorney help a 24-year senior NCO try this strategy and fail miserably because he only admitted to what was caught on video. Now, let me be clear. That is not taking responsibility. That's just a recognition you've been caught red-handed. And taking responsibility and being caught are not the same thing. Why this isn't just about core values, it's about strategy. Let me tell you why many military lawyers lose cases they should have won. They think taking ownership makes you look guilty. That's why you're going to lose. Most defense attorneys focus only on the standard of proof, beyond a reasonable doubt. Deny everything, make the government prove every element. Force them to work for the verdict. And let me be clear, in some cases, that is the right move. But in courts martial, especially for officers and senior NCOs, that strategy often backfires. Why? Because military panels are different. Military panels are not a jury of your peers. They are highly educated senior officers and NCOs themselves. They've led troops, they've been in command, they have made life and death decisions. They understand accountability. And when they see a fellow senior officer refusing to take responsibility for anything, even the small stuff, they don't see a fighter. They see someone who lacks integrity. They see someone who cannot be trusted in the bunker. They see someone who's lost value to the man. This is not about military core values or morality. This isn't about being humble or noble or taking the high road. This is about credibility. Credibility is your only currency in a courtroom. And the way you build credibility in the courtroom is by owning what you actually did. So when you deny what you didn't do, the people believe you. And if you're an attorney, the same goes for you. Lie or confuse facts during trial, you'll have no credibility. And without credibility, how on earth are you supposed to convince anybody of anything during your closing argument when literally everything is on the line for your client? Spoiler alert, you won't. Now, here's the part most lawyers and clients don't understand. Credibility is only half the equation, because once you've established your credibility, you need to know how to leverage that credibility to dismantle the prosecution's case. That's where most defense attorneys and most clients completely fail. Now that you understand why credibility is the foundation to every winning defense strategy, you need to know how to turn ownership of mistakes into aggressive, proactive defense that puts the prosecution on their heels. In my next video, I'll be breaking down the most important lesson for military trial lawyers, and clients should be able to tell right away whether their lawyer understands or not. You don't want to miss it.